What is everyone in the NFL talking about today? Once we saw the footage, we were absolutely livid. That reaction sums up the mood across the NFL gridiron right now. After 16 seasons of breaking bones, spitting on opponents, and completely wrecking a teammate's career, Bill Romanowski is finally facing sentencing, and players are realizing what it means. Subscribe as we unpack this fallout together, the penalty and how the league is reacting. The most hated linebacker in football history now owes the United States government $15.5 million. That massive figure hit the internet in March 2025 after a federal judge recommended a default judgment against Romanowski and his wife Julie for unpaid federal income taxes, heavy penalties, and interest stretching back to 1998. The Justice Department filed its lawsuit back in, claiming the couple neglected or refused to pay taxes for 7 different years while draining cash from his health supplement company, Nutrition 53, to cover spa visits, plastic surgery, rent for their grown daughter, and groceries for their adult son. Then, the couple filed for bankruptcy and did not even offer a defense. The court entered a default, and football fans lost their minds. But here is what everyone missed completely. The backlash against Bill Romanowski did not start in 2025. It began decades ago, coming from opponents who had lined up across from him on the gridiron, teammates who had shared a locker room, and observers who watched him play for 16 straight seasons. They all saw that whatever line separates tough from dirty, Romanowski did not just cross it, he erased it entirely. In fact, ESPN once ranked him the 5th dirtiest player in all of professional sports history, not just in the NFL, but all team sports. And honestly, it was not a controversial selection. He played 243 consecutive regular season games at linebacker, a record back then, reaching 265 total appearances. He won 4 Super Bowls, 2 with the San Francisco 49ers and 2 with the Denver Broncos, appearing in 5 total. He registered 118 tackles, 39.5 sacks, and 18 interceptions. He earned 2 Pro Bowl nods and made the PFWA All-Rookie team in 1988. On paper, those stats belong in Canton, Ohio on a bronze bust with a gold jacket hanging in the lobby. But Romanowski will never reach the Hall of Fame. And the reasons why start with a brutal kick to a defenseless opponent's head, ending with a fist to a teammate's face, alongside endless incidents of spitting, broken bones, steroids, and racial allegations, all capped off by one of the most spectacular financial collapses in professional sports history. Now, the NFL has seen players sent to prison for murder, conspiracy, fraud, or dogfighting. Those dark cases always generated major headlines, public statements, and league discipline. But when Romanowski's $15.5 million tax judgment hit the headlines, the response from the football community was something far more devastating than pure anger. It was total silence. And that cold silence speaks louder than any statement ever could. J.J. Stokes, the 49ers receiver who had Romanowski spit in his face on Monday Night Football in front of millions of viewers, once said, "He's a loudmouth guy. That's just a lack of honor, a lack of respect. He lacks integrity and lacks a lot of things, and he tries to make up for it with performance enhancers." Obviously, his parents didn't raise him right. Even legendary coach Mike Ditka watched a tape of Romanowski's dirtiest plays and delivered a verdict that cut deeper than any NFL fine. Most of your greatest hits were from behind, out of bounds, or after the whistle. Hall of Famer Dan Marino watched that exact footage and called it sad. Meanwhile, Jerry Rice, the legendary wide receiver who shared a locker room with Romanowski for 6 seasons in San Francisco, was eventually forced to testify in court about Romanowski's destructive behavior, telling a jury under oath that his teammate crossed the line. Those are the stunning reactions to 16 seasons of escalating violence that piled up like a rap sheet. Yet, incredibly, he never faced any real criminal charges. To understand how a 4-time champion ended up owing $15.5 million while the football world watched in silence, we must start right on the field, looking at how he treated opponents. Because if you look at his actual playing career in isolation, ignoring the fines and controversies, his performance was extraordinary. Drop a like if you agree. As we trace his start with the 49ers in the 3rd round of the 1988 NFL Draft out of Boston College. He played 6 years with the 49ers, 2 with the Eagles, 6 with the Broncos, and 2 with the Oakland Raiders. He reached 5 Super Bowls, with 3 different teams and won 4 rings, placing him alongside legendary winners who dominated the sport. He started 222 regular season matchups and added 22 postseason games to his resume. Coaches loved his obsessive film study, relentless sideline-to-sideline pursuit, and his absolute willingness to do dirty work that others avoided. Teammates capitalized on the sheer terror he injected into opposing offenses. Every running back and tight end matching up against him knew that colliding with him brought attacks of pain and humiliation far beyond what the play required. On paper, he was an elite gridiron star, but humanly speaking, he was a complete disaster. He left a trail of broken bodies, and his dirty plays on the field from 1988 to 2003 reads more like a criminal rap sheet than a routine penalty list. In 1991, Romanowski, by his own admission on 60 Minutes, purposely broke a running back's fingers in a pileup. He later confessed that eye gouges, broken fingers, and hidden violence under the pile were part of his deliberate game plan, a toolbox of dirty tricks deployed systematically in dark corners where cameras and referees could never see. These were not emotional accidents. They were calculated assaults committed under the cover of the gridiron, masked perfectly by the controlled chaos of 22 men colliding on every single snap. Today, you and I are looking at a man who admitted everything on 60 Minutes, sitting across from Scott Pelley with cameras rolling, under no obligation to speak. In 1995 with the Philadelphia Eagles, he kicked Arizona Cardinals fullback Larry Centers in the head while Centers was lying on the turf after the whistle. Ejected, fined $500, a tiny penalty that worked less as a punishment and more like a pact, proving the league would tolerate absolute chaos if you could produce on Sundays. Then came 1997, during a preseason matchup with the Denver Broncos, where he delivered a brutal helmet-to-helmet blow on Carolina Panthers quarterback Kerry Collins, shattering the young signal caller's jaw in multiple places. A $20,000 fine. Collins missed weeks. Romanowski proudly called it a favorite hit. Then, December 1997, Monday Night Football, Broncos versus 49ers, primetime television. After a physical pileup, Romanowski did the unthinkable, spitting directly into the face of San Francisco wide receiver J.J. Stokes. Stokes! Not near him, not at his feet, but directly into his eyes and face. Deliberately, with cameras capturing every single angle, millions of fans watching live from their living rooms. That repulsive footage replayed on loop on every sports broadcast in the nation. It became the defining, ugly image of his legacy. By 1999, Romanowski racked up $42,500 in fine. This was for illegal hits, plus punching Chiefs tight end Tony Gonzalez on the field. In another game, he hurled a football at Jets linebacker Brian Cox, striking him dead in the groin. It was an act so classless, so far removed from actual sportsmanship, that it would be laughable if it were not part of a decade-long trend. You and I saw this culminate when the Denver Post named him captain of their all-dirty squad, writing a line that echoed what every fan knew: when your own teammates call you dirty, the debate is officially over. The debate was over. In 2002, now with Oakland at 36, holding his body together with designer steroids and sheer force of will, he ripped Titans running back Eddie George's helmet off mid-play. But beneath these outrageous on-field moments, an even darker cloud hovered over his career. A racial element added another heavy layer of scrutiny that followed him. In August 2000, Sports Illustrated dropped a massive story. They published allegations from an anonymous source, later tied to Martin Harrison, claiming the linebacker had used vile racial slurs. He reportedly urged a white teammate to abuse diet pills just to keep up with black players, right as his federal drug charges hit. Romanowski fired back, calling the report a total fabrication and garbage journalism, while his legal team pushed a fierce denial. No suspension or fine ever came down, and he has always denied being a racist. But analysts and critics pointed to the pattern: Centers, Stokes, George, all black athletes targeted by his most disgusting, degrading behavior. Fans drew their own conclusions. Receiver Chris Carter claimed Romanowski threatened him during pre-game warm-ups. Romanowski's response was classic and chilling. He called Carter a mind reader, admitting he threatened opponents in every single game of his career. One columnist summed it up: guys like Romanowski disgrace this league. 16 seasons, tens of thousands of dollars in fines, ejections, broken bones, and spit in faces. Helmets ripped off, low blows, and shattered jaws. Yet, through years of this absolute chaos, there was never a single suspension. Not one real suspension, not one ban. You and I have to ask, why did the league look the other way? They tolerated him because he won rings, because he was an Ironman who never missed a game, and because the front office decided, consciously or not, that his massive value on Sundays far outweighed the destruction he inflicted on everyone around him during the week. That unwritten deal held up for 16 seasons, until August 24th, 2003, when he crossed a line even the NFL could not ignore. It was the punch that ended a career. The Raiders were holding a full contact scrimmage in Alameda right after a preseason loss. Head coach Bill Callahan was famous for running a notoriously brutal camp. This was not a soft, modern practice. Full contact war was the daily culture in Oakland, not an occasional drill. Practice took place hidden from public view, behind a 10-foot chain-link fence draped in heavy black tarps. What happened inside those walls was meant to stay secret. But second-year tight end Marcus Williams, a 25-year-old up-and-comer who stood 6'4" and weighed 250 pounds, was in motion as the play began. As quarterback Rich Gannon took the snap, Williams went in motion, sealing off Romanowski and driving him wide. Then, the whistle blew. The play was dead. But what followed would spark a 3-week courtroom trial and massive media storm. It stands as one of the most violent practice incidents in gridiron history. According to eyewitnesses who testified in court, Williams let go and threw his hands up, signaling the rep was over. Romanowski instantly grabbed him by the front jersey. As Williams tried to disengage, Romanowski shoved his helmet so violently it ripped completely off, leaving the young tight end exposed. Right then, Romanowski launched a brutal right uppercut directly to Williams' bare face. Williams collapsed cold onto the grass. Romanowski stood over his limp teammate, screaming, "Don't you ever hold me." Teammate Ryan Prince recalled the sound of that punch as completely sickening. It was an unnatural noise. He noted Williams was knocked out, silent and motionless, calling it the most horrific thing he ever witnessed in the pros. Raiders director Bruce Allen admitted under oath that he had seen thousands of training camp scraps over his long career, but absolutely nothing like this. A player's entire livelihood was permanently shattered, not by an opponent, but by his own teammates' fists. That single punch shattered Williams' left eye socket, chipped a tooth, and left him with double vision, brain trauma, depression, and flashbacks, plus post-traumatic stress that would haunt him long after his physical wounds healed. His NFL career, lasting just 14 games with 11 tackles and an AFC championship ring from the 2002 Raiders Super Bowl run, was over at just 27. Williams then called the Alameda police. It was a move he later regretted. Not because it was wrong, but because calling the police on a teammate in the NFL carries a massive stigma. As fans, you and I know players are expected to handle things in-house, making police reports look like betrayal. The Raiders fined Romanowski one game check, about $58,000, and stopped there. No suspension, no release, and no public condemnation from the front office. Romanowski apologized publicly, calling his actions a classless move. He even phoned Williams offering help, but left no contact detail. On October 29, 2003, the Raiders waived Marcus Williams. The victim was cut, while the aggressor stayed. No criminal charges were ever filed against Romanowski for that practice field assault. Williams ended up suing for $3.8 million, citing battery, negligence, and emotional distress. The trial kicked off March 1, 2005, before Judge Cecilia Castellanos. We saw 13 days of testimony spread over 3 weeks. The jury watched tape of the punch at least 17 times. Williams testified, and I quote, "I'd been in some tussles, but that ain't what this was. That wasn't a fight, it was an assault." He told the jury, "I'm a grown man. If this was just a fight, we wouldn't be here." He then showed film of his special teams tackles and blocks, proving he wasn't just some roster bubble guy hanging on by a thread. He was a real contributor, a young athlete with years of football ahead of him. All of that was wiped out in a single swing. His attorney, James Brosnahan, argued it was brutal violence outside the rules. Romanowski's lawyer, Jeffrey Springer, countered that it was simply mutual combat inside the hyper-violent NFL. He claimed Williams was just chasing a payday after his client made one mistake on one play. He praised Romanowski as an outstanding player, expressing regret but arguing the incident was just an occupational hazard in a sport built on aggression. Meanwhile, the Raiders counsel stated flatly the franchise was not liable for the attack. Romanowski took the stand calmly, sharing his underdog story and admitting to the punch while still framing the fight as mutual. But the trial's biggest moment came on March 16, 2005, when legend Jerry Rice took the stand. He had shared a locker room with Romanowski for 6 seasons in San Francisco, watching him evolve from an energetic rookie into one of the most feared, highly penalized defenders in the game. Rice testified for about 10 minutes, and every single word carried the immense weight of a Hall of Famer who always did things the right way. He told the jury that Romanowski crossed the line. Football is violent, yes, but there are clear boundaries. And punching a teammate in the face is not acceptable under any definition of the game. Rice testified, "I can't condone what he did. I would never do that. I would never jeopardize a player like that." Rice described Williams as a solid contributor on special teams, adding there was a strong chance another franchise would have signed him. Ultimately, the jury found Romanowski liable for battery, but rejected malice. No punitive damages. The verdict was $340,000 in lost wages and $40,000 in medical costs. They settled for $415,000 2 months later, adding $75,000 because the verdict failed to cover pain and suffering. It is a wild story of the engine that built and destroyed everything. What makes Romanowski's career so complex is that the same intensity driving his violence also produced 4 Super Bowl rings, 243 consecutive starts, and a decorated career. Make sure to hit subscribe for more raw football history, as he explains where that drive came from. Romanowski recalled being a kid who was floundering, but he was a good, even great athlete growing up in Connecticut, listening to his parents worry about making ends meet, second mortgages, and college tuition for 5 kids. Vacations meant piling into a station wagon and driving to Ohio. Nobody in that household had a roadmap to the NFL. The turning point was a Sports Illustrated piece on Herschel Walker. Push-ups, pull-ups, sprints, clean eating. Romanowski read it and started that very night. He began training relentlessly, recalling that on his first night of work, he could only manage 11 push-ups. 11 push-ups was the starting point. Within months, he was crushing hundreds daily. He did pull-ups from his garage rafters, building from zero. While friends drank at parties, he walked around all night holding a single beer with 2 ounces gone. A constant voice in his head asked, "Is this going to get you where you want to go?" Whenever the answer was no, he walked away. At Boston College, coaches put him in a yellow scout team jersey to sit out and wait. Other freshmen in yellow joked about weekend parties. But Romanowski actually cried on the field, staring at the starting lineup across from him, swearing he would win a spot within a week. He fought linemen, sacked Doug Flutie, and intercepted everything. When starting linebackers got hurt in the season opener, the head coach hesitated, looking at him, then looking away, before finally waving him in. He seized the moment, and by the 5th game, he was starting. He graduated with a business degree because he saw other players major in easy subjects and wondered about life after football. The 49ers drafted him in 1988, winning back-to-back Super Bowls in his first 2 years. Then, legend Ronnie Lott pulled him aside in the film room, delivering a warning he would never forget. Let's look at the brutal reality of the gridiron. Lott warned everyone that this is a game of respect. If you let an opponent punk you, they will push you straight out of the league. Bill Romanowski famously admitted that playing linebacker in the pros forced him to tap into a very dark place. For 6 seasons with the 49ers, he chased legendary receiver Jerry Rice to the end zone on every single practice play, just to get noticed by the staff. After 2 seasons with Philly, he signed with the Denver Broncos in 1996. That is where his career peaked. He trained with Olympic coaches, transformed his diet, and targeted the Pro Bowl. In his first year there, he was named a first alternate. He kept pushing, and while on vacation, Coach Tom Coughlin called to say he was officially in. Back then, that game was played after the championship, giving him a full month to train like absolute hell to get ready. 2 more rings followed in Denver, along with a career-best 7.5 sacks in 1998. But how was he performing like this? In his late 30s, he admitted on 60 Minutes that he used custom steroids from BALCO, THG, and human growth hormone. He used synthetic testosterone to speed up recovery, dodge drug tests, and prolong a career that should have ended long before. As he later put it, writing for the Players Tribune, the more brutal and nasty his play became, the more opponents hated him and the more his own team loved him. But his brain paid the price. 20 diagnosed concussions and a mini stroke at age 37, all while he was still actively playing on Sundays. He drove home from the facility after one incredibly violent practice and completely forgot where his own house was located. It was only 15 minutes down a straight road, but he spent 40 minutes driving in terrified circles until the memory finally returned. The stroke was even worse. His nervous system basically glitched out, and everything went pitch black for a couple of seconds. But he stayed quiet. He told absolutely no one, not even his wife. At 37 in this league, showing any weakness means you get cut immediately. You are easily replaced by someone younger and cheaper. In his mind, the bench meant failure, and he refused to accept that. He kept playing at all costs, even when the damage to his body was irreversible. Now, let's look at the financial fallout. Retirement saw him launch Nutrition 53 in 2006. He released a hit memoir, landed movie roles, and even coached some high school ball. He became a voice for brain health. But off-the-field drama wasn't new. In 1999, the couple faced massive fraud charges. His wife Julie faced 8 felony counts, and Bill was hit with 4. They were looking at serious prison time, but a jury acquitted him in 2001, and Julie's case was dropped. He escaped that hit. But check this out, a federal lawsuit accused them of systematically dodging taxes for years, while funding a lavish lifestyle through their own business. The feds detailed a wild list of personal luxuries disguised as business deductions. We are talking over 170 salon visits charged directly to Nutrition 53, along with rent for their grown daughter and groceries for their adult son. They even billed veterinary care, family pet food, and private medical bills to the company. The brand was supposed to be selling supplements, not acting as a private, tax-free ATM for the family. Meanwhile, 7 long years of back taxes, complete with massive penalties and mounting interest, sat completely ignored. The unpaid debt ballooned into millions of dollars. If you are enjoying this deep dive, hit that subscribe button right now. Instead of defending themselves, they repeatedly filed for bankruptcy right when the pressure got too hot. Nutrition 53 declared Chapter 11 in late 2023. They filed personal bankruptcy a day before their key tax court hearing. By February 2025, that shifted to a total liquidation. Despite the court giving them plenty of chances to clear their name, they failed to produce a single piece of evidence. So, the judge did what any legal system does. He approved a default judgment of $15.5 million because the defense simply refused to participate. The state won because there was absolutely no opposition in court. Now, federal agents are moving in to seize the asset. Make sure to like this video as we compare his fate to other players who faced actual jail time. Aaron Hernandez received life without parole, while Ray Caruth served nearly 19 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Robert McCune got 5 years in prison for healthcare fraud, and others faced real jail time for finance scams. Those were serious criminal sentences handed down to players who actually had to stand trial and face their judgment. Romanowski's nightmare is different. It is a story of complete financial ruin, which brings its own kind of devastation. The fall from grace is incredible when you look at the stats. Here was an absolute warrior on the gridiron. He earned millions, secured 4 championships, and played more consecutive games than any other linebacker in pro football history. This was a guy who refused to be outworked, but today he is facing total liquidation. His supplement brand has been seized. His entire estate is gone. He owes the IRS millions, meaning his 16 seasons in the league ended in absolute financial disaster. We spent years watching his antics. Teammates held emergency locker room meetings over his behavior, while rivals openly called him a disgrace. Even Hall of Fame legends testified under oath that he crossed the line. Yet, they stayed silent when that final number dropped. It was not because they did not care. Instead, they had already said everything years ago, back when his damage was measured in broken bones and shattered careers, rather than